Hey everybody, welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Michael Noland. Tonight, we've got a mystery to solve, folks. We need to find out if it was Dr. Paul McCartney or the illustrious Colonel Bruce Springsteen or Mrs. Ticketmaster or perhaps even the sultry Miss Live Nation who took a pipe wrench into the library and murdered live rock and roll. All right, folks, first of all, make no mistake, I've examined the body. It's dead as a doornail. Now, why would I say that live rock and roll is dead? Well, for many reasons, and far more reasons than I brought up in my intro, and we're going to discuss all of that tonight. All right, so believe it or not, what got me interested in this, I'm on another mic right now, but what got me interested in this whole subject, to kind of look it up again and all of that, was an article that I read on the internet, of course, and it was an article in which a band's manager was being interviewed, and the question to him was, by many fans, why that particular band wasn't going to show up in North Carolina, preferably Charlotte, North Carolina, on their tour. And the band's manager got into a ton of stuff here, and that's kind of what I wanted to go over tonight, folks, is the impetus of the article. All right, so the article opens with, it inevitably happens to most bands at some point in their career. A tour gets announced, and one of the markets they hope to play ends up not listed on their stops. It's an annoyance for the group and sometimes a source of confusion and derision for fans on that missing market. And here it says, the band Camino manager Jameson Roper attempted to set the record straight, responding to one fan on Twitter, pulling back the curtain on what goes on into touring booking, routing, and how and why some markets can sometimes be missed. He even said that they had to reroute the tour 3 separate times before the tour even began. He states that what goes into routing is what markets the band wants to play, what city they want to wind up in, and can they start off in that city, and they have to route accordingly. Now, he goes on to say that there's a lot more than just that. You know, they want to know, will the actual venues have a stage big enough for their equipment, their lighting show, or whatever? And if not, are there alternative lighting shows that they may have to hire along the way? He also went on to say that Camino, a band that's not in the top tier, was careful not to step on the toes of larger artists. Now, he kind of implied that they didn't want to not sell tickets because maybe a Bruce Springsteen or someone else was performing around the corner. But that whole line of reasoning doesn't wash. It's a reasoning of what's not being said here, folks. Notice he doesn't mention Ticketmaster. He doesn't mention Live Nation in this interview, not once. Nor does he talk about specific venues and what it takes to play at those venues, not once. Only the size of their stages and where they want to play. That's the only time he mentions venues. Why so elusive? I'll tell you why. He's part of the whole damned problem. Never trust a manager. You know, there are only 2 good managers in rock and roll as far as I'm concerned. Brian Epstein, who managed the Beatles, and he made his fair share of mistakes, but he worked for that band. And what about Peter Grant? Man, right there at the venue. He catches the venue selling Led Zeppelin merchandise and chews the man all the way to hell. You see, venues are part of the problem as well. Not only that, so are the artists who perform at these concerts, and I'm sorry to say it, folks, So are we. And I'm going to tear through all of that tonight. First up, Ticketmaster. Now, I come from the era when Ticketron and those kind of ticket services just started. And it did mean an increase in ticket prices at that time, but they were reasonable ticket increases. They merely covered what that company did. They pretty much got paid for services rendered. Over the years, Ticketmaster took the lead and became the predominant ticket broker on the market. When they reached that status, they were still kind of in competition for different reasons with Live Nation. But it wasn't too long before Live Nation ate up Ticketmaster, and now they are existing as a three-headed, 4, 5, 6-headed monster right in front of our eyes. When Live Nation bought Ticketmaster, they became immediately a two-headed monster, and along with the venues that Live Nation's controlled, we had a three-headed monster. Now, before we can deal with that monster, we got to see if there's any hidden heads there, and we need to back up to the artist himself. And in rock and roll, what bigger artists are there than Paul McCartney and Bruce Springsteen? We've talked in the past how Paul McCartney tickets were going as high as $5,000. But not to be outdone, Bruce Springsteen tickets were costing as high as $8,000. Now, when Bruce answered his critics over this debacle, he said, "I did make that decision. I have to stand by it." Now, when he was saying that, he was talking about his decision to do business with Ticketmaster under the current conditions. He makes no statement about what he was charging to even show up. Ticketmaster don't give a damn. They don't care what somebody on that tier wants. They just tack on an additional 75% to the tickets. So when Paul McCartney or Bruce Springsteen want to make, say, $20 million for a quick tour, Ticketmaster then adds an additional 75%, $15,000. So that tour will cost fans $35 million in order to cover all the expenses. But it doesn't stop there. You see, Ticketmaster's partner in crime, Live Nation, owns a ton of venues. As a matter of fact, they own the majority of venues all over the world. And talking about the venues are getting their piece of the pie as well, charging lesser known bands to even show up, giving them X amount of tickets that if the band sells, they might make a little bit of profit, taking up to 20% of every artist's merchandise. They charge the artist for any insurance that they have to pay, any medical staff that they have online that night, as well as attendees there on the grounds, attendees in the parking spaces, and parking as well. They've got their little tendrils out to the local eateries, and everybody's getting a piece of the pie. And many of those events have equipment that they also rent out to the artists. We talked about Camino wanting a venue large enough for their light show. Another band might go to a smaller arena and have to pay for a smaller light rig. It all comes out of your wallet and my wallet, folks. And any room accommodations, if you don't think they've got their fingers in the pie, you are sadly mistaken. And so we see an increase in prices for rooms every year, steadily going up, always. But you know, fans are fans, and they pay those prices to see their favorite artists. But what do they actually see and hear? Paul Stanley recently being accused of using AI treatment on his vocals, with his manager saying, well, he actually sings. What's coming out of the speaker has been changed. It's the AI singing. They've totally changed his voice. All that is second-rate lip syncing for me. Bands who can't play because they lost their laptop. You see, because there's so many extra instruments than what just that band proper plays, they have to have these backing tracks. Now, your average music listener isn't going to be looking and pointing and seeing what's up on stage. No, they're going to assume what they're listening to is live. After all, look at all the people about. And the band is up there. And what about the debacle over the Taylor Swift tickets being sold through Ticketmaster? Unhappy fans tried to sue Ticketmaster, and guess what? By buying those tickets, they had pre-agreed not to be able to sue Ticketmaster. Holy shades of a non-disclosure agreement. Aren't they just the perfect little middleman? Not unsuable, and therefore they see themselves as the gatekeeper. The only way to stop this insanity is for people not to show up at the gate. So in the end, the mystery isn't so much a game of Clue, is it? It's more of an Agatha Christie whodunit. And in this particular case, they all did. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the video tonight. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up. That helps with channel growth. And please feel free to subscribe to the channel. All you have to do is hit that subscribe to the tribe button and then tap that top bell icon and you're there. All right, I'm Michael Noland, and with you guys in the comments, we together are the tribe. I'll see you in my next video.